I think what's really tough for B2B marketers is if they've got a situation where, they've not had that investment and backing internally into things like their organic search and discoverability for their brand, then turning around in the current climate to a CFO or whoever you report in, your CMO, etc., at board level, and saying, look, we're probably 2 years behind where we need to be, and I now need an incremental anything from 2 to 6 to 12 to 20k a month to invest into SEO. And by the way, it'll take a little bit of time for us to really start getting those results. So that's a tough sell right now.
B2B Marketers Off the Record, sponsored by Headley Media, for honest, practical conversations about what's really working in B2B marketing.
Welcome to B2B Marketers Off the Record. I am joined by Andy Griffiths. He is the Chief Growth Officer at XDNA, and who better to introduce themselves but Andy?
Theoretically so, Freya. Yeah, thank you for having me. Good to be here. As you said, I'm CTO over at XDNA Group. We have a number of fingers in different pies, but at the heart of it, we do some really good sort of software and development work. We do performance marketing to bring acquisition for clients. And then, like everyone else, we also have sort of a team of crazy scientists messing around with some AI bits at the moment as well.
I love that. I just know you're going to be a great guest for our listeners.
No pressure.
Before we dive into the questions that we ask every guest, what we like to do at the top of this podcast is play on a little bit of nostalgia. So tell me you've been in the B2B marketing space for a number of years without telling me. I'll go first. So the one that I tend to use is QR codes. The first time, the second time, and probably the third time too. What about you, Andy?
I'm going to follow you up then with augmented reality.
Oh, spicy. Okay.
Except that augmented reality didn't have a COVID to rescue it from the abyss of tech that theoretically we should all be using all the time, but no one really bothers with.
No one really bothers with. COVID saved a few things when it comes to kind of the marketing space and changed a few things. But yeah, augmented reality didn't quite make it through.
Not in the same way. I remember all kinds of apps like Blipper and various other things that didn't quite land in the same way. But yeah, I mean, who doesn't love to scan a QR code now? Well,
exactly. How did you get into the space originally, Andy? What was your journey like into B2B marketing?
Good question. I think I'd always been interested in marketing without realising that's what I wanted to do, is the honest answer. Really, really sad, but as a kid, watching TV, I mean, the adverts were pretty much my favourite bit. I'm not even lying, not even just out of, seeing what toys were coming out or anything else. I genuinely enjoyed sort of advertising marketing. I've always enjoyed sort of wordplay and good copy and that kind of stuff. And I don't think I ever really sort of clocked that therefore marketing was where I wanted to go to. I started off in the event space, so conferencing exhibitions, so an absolute classic channel for B2B marketing, really. Which was theoretically great. I was with sort of a pretty at the time sort of young business full of really creative people, did really well. They eventually got bought by Reuters. However, my journey through them was a little less rosy because I decided to start my career on the cusp of the 2007 and 8 recession. Mm-hmm. So the start of my career is sort of I think for a good few years my profession was getting made redundant. For a little while there, but I sort of landed in that aspect of kind of conferences, trade show, focused content across a number of different sort of verticals within B2B, but always in that kind of B2B marketing stakeholder. Fell into various bits and pieces around things like industry trade publications and things like that as well. But I sort of stumbled into it, and it was only really through kind of I think sort of grafting and stumbling and eventually, I hope, landing on my feet that, sort of solidified and realised that, marketing and advertising, this is me.
This is what I do. This is what I enjoy. How interesting. Do you know what, Andy, in all of the episodes that we've recorded so far, I would say more than 90% of the guests tripped and fell. They didn't, until they were, knee deep in marketing that they then realised, actually, this is what I love. And then they learned about the psychology behind it, and they learned, and all the science side of it, and it just blew their minds, and that's why they kind of locked in to this as their career path. I don't think I've had one guest so far that said, marketing is exactly what the course that I knew I would take from the off. It's I was inspired. I saw something. Someone opened a door for me. I went for a job interview for this role and ended up in this role. It's fascinating.
It's interesting you say that, because I've been fortunate enough to hire and manage over my career a couple of people that very deliberately did come from, a deliberate choice of marketing, qualified in it, all the rest of it. And it's difficult, right? Because I've held over the course of my career sort of various sort of marketing and sales roles, and probably always felt like a bit of an imposter in both, thinking, is this what I'm supposed to do, etc. And have absolutely sort of fallen in love with it over the course of time. But it is sort of it is always interesting when you see someone that I'm always envious of anyone that knows exactly what they want to do.
Yeah, me too. Still figuring it out at this point.
Absolutely.
So there's been a lot of change in the marketing landscape, particularly in the B2B space, over the last sort of 5-6 years. Is there one particular belief that you have changed your mind on in the last 12 months?
Yeah, last 12 months, certainly. I think kind of there's two aspects, right? I think one, I don't know if I'd call it a belief or a complacency. I think it's more, I don't know if it's a core belief so much as things that were taken for granted. And I think it's flipped. So it's something, so for me, this is around the use of sort of referral network and marketing, particularly in terms of generating growth and sort of revenue, etc. I still think for many businesses it's massively underdone. I'm now going to completely contradict myself and say that I think the core belief that a lot of people still have is that you can continue to successfully build, scale, and run your business on that as sort of the heart of it. If not that alone, then the core way of doing business, etc. And I'm not saying you can't tick over doing that, but in terms of the limitations I'm seeing now around sort of scale, I think it's coming to a bit of a head. One, we've had various trends over the years, particularly sort of post-COVID, around more flexible working. People move around in roles a bit more often now. In some ways, that's great for referral and sort of network and everything. In other areas, it means that your biggest advocate can leave that client overnight and bring someone else in with their own network and referral, etc. And I think it's highlighted, particularly with kind of AI really having started to come into its own in the last sort of 12 to 18 months into marketing. I think it's sort of consolidated the need for people to kind of look further afield than perhaps the always tried and trusted.
Oh, yeah, interesting. I think my take on it is leaning even further into your network, leaning even further into that referral piece. And I think what's interesting as well is there's also the opportunity to work on the referral and partnership piece, like a shared go-to-market approach with complementary software vendors or stuff that's been happening in the channel for years, right? I think is expanding outside of the channel and into other areas and other industries from a marketing standpoint. But yeah, there's the flip side of it. There's so much movement in the market. I when I'm recruiting and hiring inside of our business, by way of example, I don't trust anyone that says they've got a little black book of connections, because those connections will have moved on. They might be able to open a door.
So you're now seeing that as the less valuable asset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I've worked in this industry for several years. I pride myself on my network, the relationships I've built over the years, my friends and allies in the industry. But if I was to leave my business tomorrow, I would never hang my hat on my black book of contacts.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what I'm trying to get to, really. It's the fact that, look, I still see it underutilized in a lot of places, and it's quite often, where some low-hanging fruit can be found. If people have a really good referral or partnership networking scheme and they're leveraging that. But I think the flip side to that is I often speak to businesses and brands where that is the core, reliance for generating any kind of leads or growth, etc. And, how people search, how they drive recommendations, how they research, how they shortlist, etc., is changing amidst an economy at the moment is, I think, kind of causing a lot of risk aversion as well.
Yeah, for sure. Which takes us really nicely, actually, onto our next question, which is, how are you seeing the B2B buying behaviour change at the moment?
Hugely. Do you want to know about for our business or for clients?
Either or, whichever one you want to lean
Either
into.
or. Okay. Well, I mean, the commonality, I think, for everyone, regardless of my own sort of personal experience heading up growth for our group, has been around the the increasing use of AI. I'm seeing more people actually sort of adopt it as a regular part of how they do work. I think kind of, particularly around sort of marketing, we're all constantly looking at the next shiny toy, whether it's, the next marketing opportunity or piece of tech or whatever it might be. So I think we're as a type of stakeholder quite key or quite quick to adopt it. It's also, let's be honest, B2B can often be one of those areas where, unless you're fortunate, you can be pretty heavily under-resourced in terms of team and budget. It's probably the biggest vertical where I see the adage of the cobbler's kids go without shoes, right, on that side of things. Whether it's a growth consultancy that has, a marketing team of 0.5 or whatever else it might be. But people are therefore adopting use of LLMs, I think, at a slightly quicker rate. And the bigger thing, because, as I said, a lot of us are under-resourced or understaffed, etc., in that front, and we're not currently in an economy that is favourable to speculative hires and an abundance of spare resource. Anything that helps shortcut, right? And part of that historically in the media buying process has been a good old bit of desktop research or whatever else it might be. And with the use of LLMs comes an inherent trust of the answers. Here's my first sort of stat I'll drop on you today. Please, at the moment, right? It's probably the biggest thing that kind of is making people sit up and look around is that you're looking at about sort of 30 to 40% stronger conversion rate of a lead that comes through an LLM versus anything else. Inbound into sales inbox, LinkedIn prospecting, paid search, SEO work, whatever else. If you're getting that stuff through an LLM, typically on average you got about 30-40% more likelihood. The challenge has always been, obviously I've worked a lot in my career around kind of advertising, media buying, digital marketing, etc. And the reality for any business that sort of goes out to tender for a new, whether it's agency, third party, whoever, to help support them on those services, the typical rule is that they're going to take through for procurement cycle maybe 5, right? So you've got the incumbent normally, you've got sort of 2 who are vouched for and about, and then you've got maybe 1 or 2 that have been shortlisted to make up the numbers. And if you don't have an existing relationship with them, you've got maybe a 5% chance of winning it. And that's a lot of expense and work for a business. So think of our own sort of challenges that you invest time, effort, resource into completing RFIs and RFPs, etc. So the fact now the leads that come through LLM, or the role that is taking in helping marketers find either media opportunities like you guys have at Headley, or whether it's agencies and sort of performance marketing support like we offer, new website, whatever it might be, the trust and credibility that people are apportioning to an LLM on the assumption that Claude's not going to let me down, he's really done his homework here, of course he's found the best market, why wouldn't I just do what Claude has? And also, that wasn't that much quicker than sort of all that sort of resource, or ringing around my entire network to find out, or putting something on LinkedIn and having my inbox absolutely destroyed within the first 30 seconds of posting, all that kind of stuff. And like I said, the conversion rates are showing, and that's honestly something we're seeing as well. So, we, like any other business, and we're B2B as well, right? In our own marketing across XT&A Group, we've got various different capabilities and access points to the business, slight variance in our ICP on that front. And where we've sort of doubled down on trying to drive LLM inbounds, those are converting at a better rate.
Yeah, we're seeing it as well. We're seeing it inside of our business. Leads that come through any kind of inbound lead that comes through the website that is coming from any kind of LLM search is stronger, they're more informed, they're more engaged, they've essentially done their desk research, and we've made it to that shortlist so much quicker as well.
And I think from our side, we take more confidence that they're a genuine prospect or opportunity or buyer, right, as well, because the assumption is that we take some bias that, oh, they must have done their homework, they're, you know, putting some proper thought into it, they're not just sort of recalling the first person they've heard or used to years ago and throwing that in there as well.
Yeah, or honouring a referral that a friend made, or they've conducted a level of research. But what does that tell us then about trust in AI search? So flip it on its head, and the individuals that are using LLMs to shortlist, how has the LLM built that trust with them so quickly?
I think we've always been relatively quick to trust impressive technology. You know, I think if you think about, I'm old enough to remember sort of adoption of the internet when it became sort of more mainstream. I was, I think, probably one of the first generations in mid-teens where we all had mobile phones. If anyone wants to know what my high score on Snake was, then DM me. That's fine. But I think it's something that we, you know, once we're kind of past the natural human sort of skepticism of something, we're generally pretty trusting in it. So I think that kind of ability to lean in and adopt it. Look, let's be honest, a lot of it's really cool. The kind of stuff that you can do through Claude or integrations, vibe coding, etc., makes it an invaluable tool to you, right? Particularly, as I said, if you're short on time or resource, there's a load of stuff that, you know, you can start to set up and integrate that can make a really modest marketing team in terms of FTEs, etc., get through and achieve an awful lot, right? The challenge with that, I think, it comes with sort of the quality and scrutiny with it. I tend to, one of my many faults, right, is I tend to be quite black and white with stuff. I drive my wife mad with this all the time. I can be quite sort of binary. It's either this or that. And as part of that horrible trend, I've tended to sort of bucket people a bit in terms of how they are adopting AI. I tend to see sort of two camps. There's those that are doing it from how can I use this to be able to achieve more or to do more? And there's the camp that go into it kind of, how can I make this easier or quicker or less work to do?
Yeah.
And I think the motivators are quite different in terms of how I've seen people go about adopting and use the tech.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, I can't fault what you've just said. I think there's obviously grey area in between the two. I know you want to be in the black and white, but there is grey area between the two. But on a simplistic level, yeah, I completely agree with you. So B2B marketers need to, and I think already are aware of this, you know, they're trying to figure out exactly how and what drives it, but they need to be really focusing efforts in on improving their search. So LLM identification, surfacing their brand, partnering with any sources, you know, digital PR, all that side of things, any sources that are going to improve their ranking essentially within LLM search is where they need to get their brands surfaced. What's a strategic bet then that you think more marketers need to make in the next couple of years, if I didn't already cover it off?
I think you've summed it up really nicely, Freya, to be honest. I don't see this going anywhere. You know, this is around to stay. It is going to continue to absolutely transform the way that people buy and procure services, and how B2B marketers need to be discoverable and seen. In the same way that if you were a slow adopter of when the internet came around and so, we don't need a website or whatever, you know, you got found out pretty quick. I genuinely think it's a bit of a crossroads right now. I think there's, I think those that have perhaps underinvested in the past in terms of their visibility around sort of great kind of classic SEO hygiene or some of the stuff you just mentioned there, DPR, etc., are being found out because they're now getting the classic of, someone on the board searched for us on ChatGPT and we didn't come up. now I've got to worry about it, or whatever sort of vanity metrics you want to throw at it, that kind of classic thing. But from a deeper route in terms of performance is you're just now really seeing kind of a shift and upweight in value of a channel that, if you're starting from scratch now and have been under investing, can take you a good couple of years to really see massive results. So the strategic bet, to answer your question, that kind of I think that leaders will have to sort of back is on whatever level or scale they can, they are going to need to win the argument internally in investing into kind of being an AI optimized brand.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's interesting because I completely agree with you. It's not going away, as you rightly said. It's, if anything, trust is going to build even further with the results that are coming up through LLM search. There's efficiencies there. I think there's confidence in shortlisting, using an LLM for shortlisting, because the user knows that they're still going to vet them. It's not making a business decision for them right now. It may in the future, but right now it's not. So therefore, any agentic AI that is shortlisting for you, or if you're using an LLM, there's still an element of human vetting, and there's still going to be 5, 10, 12 levels of approval and sign off before anyone is onboarded. So there's that assurance that that's going to happen, which is maybe why the trust is there in the first place. It's just getting you to that first step, isn't it? And businesses that aren't investing in it are going to fall behind. We're seeing, so at Headley, we're a lead gen company, so we have our own brands and our own publications, and we're seeing an increase in engagement within those brands within the B2B tech space. And I've got some working theories as to why that is happening. I'm curious about the future of AI search and what the verticalization of search will be, or of LLMs will be, when it comes to specific niches. So within the tech space, you've got finance, you've got HR, you've got cybersecurity, you've got AI investment, all of these different areas and industries, healthcare. That verticalization, I think, is going to be really, really interesting. And one of my working theories on why we're seeing more engagement across our publications is because the LLMs aren't necessarily, there's gaps in the learning, there's gaps in the training, there's gaps in the data. And I'm curious how that feels for specific niche audiences when they're using LLMs. Because for Headley and for XDNA, you're more of a service, and it's marketers that are coming and searching and utilizing it. So I'm curious about technical leaders and how they're trusting the LLM surface or discoverability or whatever it might be. We could unpack this for hours, though.
Really likely to disclose stuff that I'm not supposed to about what we're working on as well. So it's
Let's move on.
Yeah, look, it's a really good point. I like the idea of verticalization of the LLMs themselves. We're already kind of seeing it a little bit in that kind of, I think, Claude is the LLM for business. You've got Gemini as the household family, all-round kind of go-to. ChatGPT still seems to be talked of more in terms of retail spaces than any others. So I don't know how we'll sort of carve that out. There'll be others that come along as well, I'm sure, and different iterations and all the rest of it. But yeah, it's a really good point. And I think at the moment, there's so much technical opportunity to get your head around for tech leaders. A lot of them are less about trying to judge and more about trying to pioneer new things with the tools that are now at their disposal.
Yeah, absolutely. So the advice for any B2B marketer is just start. Just start. If you're not already, just start investing in your search, in your discoverability.
Look, I think so. I have a lot of both empathy for marketing stakeholders. We like many other businesses, we sort of do roundtables and events, etc. And a couple of months ago, we held one on AI search, right, and how that is shifting kind of discoverability for brands. And we didn't have a single dropout. We had 20 turn up and come around the table and discuss it. It's a really hot topic right now. And we could have run that roundtable sort of several times over. The prevailing kind of empathy that I have for those in the room, and we had everyone from sort of large blue chips to startups, sort of that were pre-seed almost, and the prevailing sort of empathy was how challenging it is to navigate everything right now. Right, mm-hmm. I think it is really, really tricky. particularly if, as I said, you're starting from behind, and a lot of them are. And I think the bit that really worries me is just how much of a chasm there is in this. There was McKinsey's latest study, Pulse, came out on sort of B2B marketing a couple of weeks, it might be 3 weeks ago now. It's in public domain, everyone can go check it out, but it's worth a read if you're in this space, I think. And sort of called out a couple of things. First of all, the good basic digital omnichannel marketing, which I think is still an aspiration for so many B2B businesses, is I think the turn of phrase they used was merely the price of admission.
Wow.
Now, not the aim to get to, is like the absolute bare minimum. So the expectation of what's required as a bare minimum, as a benchmark, has leveled up and shifted, I think. And the other thing that I was really surprised to read out, and I'm not sure, maybe I'll ask Claude or something if this is true, but without them just referring back to McKinsey. But the other key stat was that I think it was something like 70% of B2B businesses are e-com now.
Oh, wow. And
if you think about the reliance, if there's some kind of transactional aspect of your B2B marketing, the reliance, I mean, I'm going to shameless plug, but within XDNA Group, we also do a lot around D2C and consumer-facing brands as well. We do a lot around sort of driving e-com revenue growth and stuff through acquisition marketing, etc. And it is savage. It is an absolute, a technical, it's a numbers soup. It's a lot of expertise into it to really manipulate an entire customer journey. And that's just for someone who might be searching for something for, I don't know, size 9 socks, same day delivery or next day delivery or something. If you think about some of the aspects of LLM search, where for B2B, we ask more prescriptive questions, because it doesn't just have to be B2B media owners UK. That might have got Headley or something, right? You're now starting to look at things like what are the best ones, XYZ, where a budget of ABC would achieve something for me that specifically has worked with, and then I'm going to list a couple of my competitors' brands or something about my ICP. So that long tail of really prescriptive search is getting quite tricky now, I think. So I think it's I think if there's one thing that everyone should be doing is as challenging as all that is, and as under-resourced everything is, what is super achievable right now for very little investment, I mean very little investment, is to at least measure what you're doing. Because look, it's shifting all the time. I'd be a complete charlatan if I turned around and said, look, this is exactly what it's going to be. I think if you work in search marketing right now, you can open any random publication or blog, and one will tell you that search has completely changed overnight. Another one will tell you that actually, no, it hasn't. It's just good old-fashioned SEO. It's probably a bit of both, the classic thing, right? But good core SEO is a really good starting point. I think what's really tough for B2B marketers is if they've got a situation where, they've not had that investment and backing internally into things like their organic search and discoverability for their brand, then turning around in the current climate to a CFO or whoever you report in, your CMO, etc., at board level, and saying, look, we're probably 2 years behind where we need to be, and I now need an incremental anything from 2 to 6 to 12 to 20k a month to invest into SEO. And by the way, it'll take a little bit of time for us to really start getting those results. So that's a tough sell right now. Yeah. That's a really, really tough sell. So I think, there's a couple of things to double down on, right? One is the quick wins you can do over a very short period of time. Get your hands on a good AI measuring tool or an agency that can set one up for you. It is very little money, and at least then you have the data and the visibility to either abate some of the pressure you've got internally, and you can say, look, this is really important. Currently, it's only X amount of searches on these kind of prompts per month, so we're still in time. Versus, oh my God, we're miles behind. Look, right here is the data that backs up why you need to be funding this immediately into my next fiscal. And the second bit of it is be tactical around short-term tactical campaigns that will bear results, that focus on media opportunities that are leveraging this. So, you know, I'm going to do a really shameless plug for Headley here, right? And you'll love me for this, but you guys are a good example. You're not the only one out there. You know, I'm sorry, Freya, but you know, you're a really good example of where you guys have invested into some of this stuff. You know, go find the data that you know how prompts and AI visibility is affecting your own brand, and then go spend a little bit of money on some tactical opportunities that prove that if you are active and relevant in the areas that are picking up this visibility, you get the kind of results that will give internal stakeholders a bit of that confidence to underpin some of that investment. Because I think otherwise there'll be a lot of people trying to cheat and shortcut it, and you know, they'll get found out in sort of 6 to 18 months. I think they're going to get found out.
And then they'll be even further behind, right? If they don't start properly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, it can take, even before LLMs and everything else, right? If you're looking at just sort of organic visibility, saying, I want to be top of the Google search results pages for being known as, you know, I don't know, the best in whatever business you might be in, paper clips, waste management, whatever it might be, right? You know, that can take quite a bit of time to build that domain authority and rating. But it's a key part of, you know, how you're going to drive some of that visibility. And I think, you know, when you're starting to find how citations are shifting in terms of authority, that's where good kind of contextually relevant locations and feature can shortcut things quite a bit for brands, or at least, as I said, help to build that commercial case for either protecting the investment into existing tactical opportunities or building the investment into better long-term strategies to drive LLM visibility.
Yeah, such solid advice. Thank you, Andy. I knew that you would be a fantastic guest and give us loads.
Shut up, Freya.
No, not at all. You give us loads of different insights, and I think this is something that is on the forefront of so many B2B marketers' minds at the moment. It's kind of, how do we start? We're far behind, or how do we improve? And actually, you've given two really, in the grand scheme of things, simplistic things that they can take away. They're practical, and they can evaluate what they're currently doing and how does that help feed some of this. Tell me something then that you think that B2B marketers should stop doing, something they do out of habit that maybe doesn't work anymore.
Ooh, okay. This might be an unpopular opinion, right? But it's something that in the last sort of couple of years I've pulled back on, in you know, sort of previous roles and in this one. Blind loyalty to, of course, it's, you know, BizFest at the NEC, and we'll take our usual stand like we do every year, etc. I think kind of the event space and trade show space is also one that has shifted a little bit. I have, I would, you know, there's a lot of people that is this kind of, of course we do this every year. You know, of course we'll have a stand again, and it becomes that point of complacency where, you know, you rinse and repeat, and it's probably the easiest part of your calendar. It's a lot of work doing events, but it's probably the easiest thing that you don't have to think about. You know, it's going to happen. I've previously worked at a business where, because it was so intrinsic to the vertical where a lot of our customers were, we had blindly been sponsoring a trade press magazine. And it was one of these, you know, inside front cover or something, you know, that kind of, that we did every year. And it was this classic kind of B2B thinking of, you know, sort of, we don't want one of our competitors to get it. And it took, I think, a good sort of maybe 4 years of me having an absolute hissy fit and being a complete grump and moaning about it and doing things like, can we at least start to put a QR code on it so that we can see if we get any kind of referral from it, right? And then when that didn't, the narrative was, but we just do it for brand awareness or visibility. Okay, well then let's change the CTAs. Let's try and make that. You know, it took a long time to stop, you know, securing what was actually a decent amount of money into just having a bit of a cover presence on something. And I think if there's ever a time to try and say and point to, look, this has changed, this has changed, can we just review what we're currently doing, particularly in the current environment, the current economy. You know, I don't want to be too negative about UK PLC. It's very hard. I was at in Qatar for Web Summit earlier this year, and the you know, everything's just buzzing. You know, sort of that optimism that has been perhaps absent for a little bit. And there is a little bit of malaise in the economy, but I think what it really means is that you know, we've not got heaps of organic growth where we're just going to get a natural share of a pie anyway. You know, so every penny needs to work and be accountable and answer back, which is again comes back to this point around sort of AI measurement and making sure you're kind of monitoring what's going on. And I think kind of, you know, be a status quo challenger right now. Challenge the status quo. Be honest with yourself. Scrutinize what you're doing. Build the case. Make it internally, and you know, go forth. Be brave.
Go forth. Be brave. I love that.
Yeah.
It's so true. Like, I remember when I was working agency side, and I remember one of the big trade shows that one of our clients used to go to, that we kind of audited how they were spending their marketing budget year on year, and there was a significant proportion of that budget that was allocated to trade show presence, stands, etc., that almost wasn't seen in the marketing budget. It was like, we always spend that, so that just exists and that just happens, and then we were playing with the other 40% of the marketing budget. Essentially the 60% was just always allocated for that. And we did an audit, and the feedback that we got from the stakeholders was something along the lines of us not being there will be noticed more than us being there, so our lack of presence. And I was like, yeah, but by who? And it was our competitors. And that is not a reason to have a stand at a trade show.
I love this, Freya. This is exactly the narrative. So I was on that side of the table with you know, my own marketing P&L at a previous business. Like I said, with this you know, sort of trade press thing, and the concern was that one of the competitors, for me, if we want one, you know, gold, let one of our competitors spend a heap of their cash that could be sort of, you know, I don't know, spent trying to improve upon our positioning or whatever else, and let them get nothing from it.
Yeah.
Really happy with that. Really happy with that, because you know, it's almost an argument saying, oh no, we don't want to sort of handicap our competitors by having them spend their money on something that won't work.
That isn't working for us anyway. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, whilst we focus our efforts.
Not everything has to be accountable to the last absolute penny, right? Not that there is across the marketing funnel, there is absolutely you know, a lot of B2B people are so kind of lead gen focused that they forget the importance of brand, and it's one of the biggest sort of overlooked parts. And you do have to do some above the line and upper funnel work in the same way. You're not immune to that. But yeah, I do find it quite amusing how many people will, to your point, your budget. I mean, it's a really astute observation from your guys, right? Your budget's actually only 40% of what you spend.
Yeah. The only you can work with is 40% of it. 60% is pre-allocated to something that someone else previously decided was the most important thing for you to invest in. What's one thing that you wish you could change in B2B marketing?
Ooh, well, that's a good one. Just one?
Just one.
I feel like I should go for something a bit more substantial or meaningful, but purely because I was rage baited by it over lunch today. I've got a lot of LinkedIn fatigue at the moment. Look, I'm a fan of LinkedIn. I'm on there a fair bit, you know, shout about, you know, like, subscribe, follow me or whatever else, you know, but I think what I don't need is some of the kind of absolute dross that you see on it. You know, I feel like it used to be you know, I tied my shoes today, and this audit told about B2B sales used to be the exception rather than rule. And the volume of that, and it is kind of becoming linked Instagram a little bit. I still find it really good for networking, for keeping in touch with people. I find it good for promoting my business and lead generation, etc. There's still a lot of value in it. So I think my upset comes from I feel like that something that I've valued is being tainted by others. But I kid you not, the other day I saw a post that someone had posted, and it was a picture of them carrying their dad's coffin with a post and trying to turn it into some sort of, what can we learn from this for bit. I mean, I couldn't. I thought this is probably one of the most crass things I've seen. And I struggle with that, right? So look,
Right.
I think if there's one thing I could change at the moment, it would be, can we just take it back to it being used as a really good kind of professional networking tool and not a substitute for hashtags and LinkedIn a little bit. And listen, I know I'm a hypocrite, so anyone listening, by all means, connect and rinse me. Absolutely ruin me. It's fine. Roast away. It's all good. But yeah, I think some of it has gone a little bit too far.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think LinkedIn need to tighten it up a little bit, don't they? Like they've introduced I don't know if you've seen it on the mobile version, they've reintroduced what they trialled a while ago in the UK, which is the video. So the video feed, which I was actually really enthused about because I love seeing video content on LinkedIn when it's insightful, when it's about events or talks or snippets, takeaways, whatever. I like consuming that content. I went on it and it was absolutely nobody I've ever engaged with their content, not even third, fourth, fifth connection away. And I don't have TikTok because I know that I will lose far too many hours to TikTok. I am the Instagram generation, and even then I have to put a time limit on it. So I don't have TikTok. I've never lent into TikTok. It felt like I was on what I imagine it to be like on TikTok if I'd searched up like a business section. It was so irrelevant, and it was really disappointing because I thought, amazing, LinkedIn, you've brought in this new feature, this new section. As someone that uses LinkedIn a lot to engage with my network, and I put a lot of content on there for a specific reason to try and help B2B marketers and, build rapport and expand my network. It was just so tainted, and there's a lot of AI slop on there. There's a lot of, what I learned, I can't even, the example you've given, Andy, I can't even entertain. Like it's so disappointing because it is coming from a place of, you gave it to us and it was wonderful and we actually had a professional network too. You've taken it away.
No, I'm completely with you. I've got no issue with people putting out sort of personal posts and things like that, but don't be just pure self-promotion and cringe-worthy kind of. It's like it's run by David Brent at the moment a little bit.
I mean, I do love The Office, but I just don't expect to see it on LinkedIn.
I'll start quoting, and then we'll really be here for hours.
Okay, one final question for you, which is, well, I kind of have two final questions, but
Okay.
nearly the final question is a question that came from Niall Sullivan, which is one of our previous guests. What is the biggest mistake that you have made in your professional capacity, and what did you learn from it?
Probably not appearing on Off the Record sooner, to be honest with you, Freya. I thought you'd like that. No, look, I don't. I mean, there's so many to choose from, right? Which I take as a good sign because nothing ventured, nothing gained. I could talk you through horrendously embarrassing typos. I could talk you through that time that I forgot that I was still sharing my screen, or various other sort of things, etc. But probably the biggest learning in the last that I've taken or held on to the last 10 years of my career has been around, and I think this is very relative to B2B because I was in a situation which hopefully a lot of your listeners will relate to, which is that I felt like my biggest barrier or challenge around sort of, I was owning digital P&L at the time. And my biggest barrier and challenge was not the market, was not necessarily the tools I had, was not pricing or productization or anything like that. The biggest barrier I had was in internal stakeholder buy-in. And I had a whole there was a sales team of sort of 20, I think, at the time, all of whom KPI'd, OKR'd, whichever acronym you want to use, on driving this revenue growth, because it's one of the most profitable parts of the business. It's also one of the biggest areas that had the most sort of headway to grow into as well. And they just weren't doing it. And I felt I was having to spoon feed and kind of really really was sort of pushing cats uphill, or whatever the phrase might be. But I had a good sort of couple months of being really kind of frustrated and down, and felt it sort of dragging my morale and my motivation and driving apathy for me and all this kind of stuff. And I had a bit of a come to Jesus with myself, and I had an absolute mental shift in terms of, do you know what? It might be their job, it might be their fault if I want to look at it that way, but it's my problem. And it was a real kind of realization of, okay, well that's yes, we're on the same team, but theoretically at least, but if it's in the way of what I need to achieve and what's going to be sort of route to my success, or what I have to get done, and how I'm measured for performance, it's my problem. And I started to be able to deal with the way that I looked at things, or how it would affect me, in a very different way. And that's something I've sort of tried to grab onto with both hands, and I still have to remind myself of sometimes every now and again. But it's it's been a bit of a cheat code for me, I think, in terms of any time when I felt really kind of like, oh, the barrier here is an internal stakeholder. Come on, the fight's out there, guys. Not here or whatever. And instead of letting that kind of really just drag me down, going, right, what am I going to do about it? How can I fix it?
What can I control? What part of this can I control?
Yeah.
It's.
Or if I can't control this, then what can I do to try and circumvent it, or improve it, or remove the barrier, etc.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think it is so frustrating. I think it will really relate to a lot of marketers, because the expectation on marketing, even more so now than it ever has been, is revenue. Right, the end result has to be revenue. But so much of that process is out of the marketer's control. They're so reliant on stakeholders, peers, other departments to carry their part, and there's only so much they can do to influence that. But if they can focus in on what they can control in that process, and what they can what they can influence, what they can control, what parts of it, so rather than becoming frustrated with the other stakeholder and creating that friction, instead, okay, what part of this is my responsibility, and what can I do to improve it? And what else, what other, is it communication? Is it, what is it that I can do to get what I need to be able to take this one step further forward, rather than the final end result? And one step. It's why I think the budget, the measurement is so important, trying to build that narrative and have the facts you need to drive budget, to break down the internal barriers that you've got. And I was speaking to a business of the day, classic SME, right? I think they're about sort of 350 people, good revenue, solvent turnover, but pretty stagnant, and hadn't really grown for a little while. And here's the surprise, right? I was speaking to their head of marketing, department of one, and they'd cut all speculative marketing spend. So into all of that 40% stuff you're talking about, right? They'd stopped doing any SEO, any paid media, any tactical campaign spend, and were just really relying on sort of referral network and a couple of trade shows. I was thinking, my God, where does this person go? How are they going to try and overnight? What a bleak existence. And then you juxtapose that kind of classic scenario against the fact that how much change there's been in the marketing landscape, the tools, channels there are, and throw that business and scenario into a conversation where you're trying to talk about LLM visibility and dropping things in like Reddit is three times more likely to be cited as an authority than Wikipedia now. Yeah. How does that kind of align? No, it's wild. Absolutely wild. Okay, we're coming up to time, and I would love to know and it can be aspirational or it can be someone you know, who would you recommend as a future guest on B2B Marketers Off the Record?
Oh, there's a really obvious one. If you a mutual connection of ours, if you haven't already had them on, you probably know what I'm going to say. Are you going to have Mike on?
I would love to have Mike on. He is on my list of people that I absolutely would love to have on the podcast.
Well,
I'm
look,
so glad.
Mike, I know you're a busy man in demand, but clear a slot in your diary because I would absolutely love to hear Mike speak on all things off the record.
Amazing, thank you, Andy. And if it is Mike or if it's someone else, what question would you give to a future guest?
If it's Mike, I would love to hear his take and advice on how on earth, in some of the scenarios we've talked about, he would advise marketing stakeholders in the B2B space right now building that argument and narrative to overcome sort of some of the reluctance and resistance around sort of budget and properly resourcing, investment and improvement into an area that is changing everything about how people discover.
Because you just know Mike Lander is going to have.
Oh my God, I know, right?
The best answer.
And not least because then I can just sort of, rip off any of his ideas as my own and go forward with that. But I do think it's a really huge challenge at the moment. And I think, it's going to be, I think in the next sort of, like I said, 6-18 months are really going to define which businesses lean into where things are going versus which kind of resign themselves to circle the drain a little bit. There's going to be a lot of change, but with change comes opportunity, right? And it comes opportunity for businesses to invest in the right things, follow the right paths. And rewind 2 years ago, we wouldn't have even known this would necessarily be a challenge in front of us. Well, you might have in your industry, but we might not have in ours. Where can people find you, Andy? Good question. So they can find me on LinkedIn, Andy Griffiths. There's not that many of us, so I should be relatively easy to find. You can find me via searching XG&A Group on LinkedIn. Likewise, Climb Agency or any other brands within the group is all good. Alternatively, strolling around Hertfordshire with a dog.
Amazing. I would love it if one of our audience members found you strolling around Hertfordshire with your dog.
I'll let you know if they do. Yeah.
All that's left to say is thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.